All right, thank you very much. Kenneth Odele coming to us there from eastern Uganda and speaking to, as he puts it, one politician after another on the pains of campaigning and the challenges of campaign financing. Welcome to the Kickstarter segment of the show, and we shall be talking about a lot more issues, including that in our conversation that is hinged on the contribution of political parties to democratic consolidation. Now, as the various candidates traverse the country in search for votes, an interview earlier showed us how some political parties are facing a double-edged sword. If it doesn't have a presidential candidate, there is a dilemma on who to support for that particular position. The Uganda People's Congress, at least officially, says it supports President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in the presidential race, but has an agreement to be allowed so that members support their flag bearers at constituency levels, including MPs and local government positions. Now, for the observers out there, that could be a bit confusing, especially within regions like Lango and Acholi, but political experience is what is at play. In studio this morning, I have with me Marion Chirabo, a lawyer and the NUP candidate for Lord Councillor Makerere. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Great. I also have Bad Vyamukama, a regular and a researcher and a political thinker, so to speak. Many thanks for joining us, Mr. Bad.
So it's a pleasure, Chris, to be here with you once again. Good morning, our viewers.
The conversation about the contribution that political parties make to democratic consolidation might sound to a person that is not initiated out there as a non-starter, because after all, democratic consolidation and democracy itself is about political parties and participation. But as a country, we find ourselves at the crossroads. We have political parties, but the challenges that they face from operations, ability to canvass for support, ability to galvanize and fundraise resources to fund their own activities, but also the challenges of identity. If a political party is strong enough to field candidates in all these positions, what happens to areas or constituencies where it is unable to, despite the popularity curve? So this morning, you're going to help us with perspective and insight that should embolden our understanding of these dilemmas. Let me begin with you, the mainstream politician. You're in the thick of it as a candidate for the National Unity Platform. You want to be the Lord Councillor for Makerere on the NUP ticket. Has the National Unity Platform supported you? Has NUP rather given you money to do campaigns?
Thank you for that. Good morning, our viewers, once again. My name is Marion Chirabo. I am the LC5 woman candidate on the NUP ticket for Makerere University. Thank you for tuning in. I will say that the party has supported in other ways. One, it has built a credible reputation. It's a party that people believe in across the country. I think we have seen by the crowds that have always followed our presidential rallies, especially across the whole country, and also in the central region where I'm standing. So I think that's the first support, giving us a platform that is credible. The second support has been that we have been campaigning as NUP candidates, that you have seen that there has been a lineup of MPs going, canvassing for votes for their counterparts and colleagues across. We had a Kawempe rally where you saw that people, all the whole leadership and different candidates from different areas came together to ask for votes for us, especially as Lord Councillors in Kawempe and also the MPs in Kawempe. So even with the limited resources that we have, I wouldn't say that the party has given us money, but we use the available resources, you know, the constraints that we have since the government has decided to cut off the funding that really constitutionally was a right to us, legally was a right to us, but maneuvering. But we are trying to use the limited resources that we have to make sure that our candidates are able to put up a credible and sustainable and powerful campaign across the country. So I wouldn't say monetary per se, but all of us coming together and contributing the little, our platforms, our small resources. Sometimes we do also fundraise for the different rallies within our within the party. So we are trying as much as we can to use the available resources that we have to sell our candidates to the people. The issue of resourcing is a very critical issue. I think that we have not really had a conversation about. Now I'm going to the side of looking at it as a candidate. That even when we have good ideas and when we are credible candidates, there are basics in a campaign. I mean, posters, banners, the facilitation of the team that you're working with, the mobilization structure, let me say means of transportation, canvassing the whole constituency, public address systems, basic things like media, social media, getting your message across. Those are things that we tend to look away from, but there are things that help you market your candidate. Now, the issue with not having enough resources for any candidate is that it makes us vulnerable as candidates, because now when the resources are limited, you then start to look for where can I get money from. And I think we need to be careful as candidates about that, because you end up falling into the hands of people whose interests are not exactly aligned to yours.
To your values.
To your values. So you end up with a candidate who is already compromised even before they get into the office. And you have seen perhaps we shouldn't be surprised when, you know, the accusations that, you know, certain leaders took money to pass certain controversial, you know, bills or policies. But you need to find out how did they come to this seat. So the issue of political finances is very important. It's an issue that we always look over, but it is. I'll end with this example. We have been following Mangdani's election to become mayor of and we saw a battle between, let me say, different ideologies. Mangdani being a socialist and believing in this more a stronger welfare state for his people, for the city, you know, more public goods, you know, being at least affordable, accessible to the people. Available. But then you saw that there was a corporate force against him that invested in his opponent to make sure that his ideologies and ideas are defeated at the ballot.
That's right.
But you saw the people of New York coming together to fundraise for him to make sure that he goes through, and perhaps the policies also work for him. The same dynamic works in Uganda. If we want our leaders to actually work for us, we need to be able to fund those credible leaders that we believe in. Otherwise, they are at risk of being captured by our opponents and people who do not really have our best interests at heart.
Thank you very much.
That's how I can explain it.
Marion, for that observation. And I believe Bad Byamukama agrees pretty much with most of your points on it. But when you look at, for example, the National Unity Platform's fundraiser drive, the first was one that embedded the handing over 10,000 Uganda shillings through mobile money. I think that was in the last election cycle. And then recently they had one where they asked supporters to come up with whatever they can and hand it to whatever kiosk is manned anywhere. It's something that works. It is something that puts the party in a tight position too, especially on aspects of accountability. When you see this happening, do you think it's evolution towards aspects including the ones that Marion talks about, the ability of people to fund political parties?
Well, I believe political parties in major countries, developed countries, are funded by their members, but for these developing nations, political parties outsource funds from various sources, for example, external actors, the civil society, from foreign governments, from foreign individuals who believe in the ideals of these parties. So I believe fundraising from individuals within the vicinities of the locations of these parties is very good, and it should be part and parcel of the process. But we shouldn't limit the ability or constrain the ability of these political parties to use their own methods or means to outsource funds from other willing funders. So, for example, the National Unity Platform has been getting funds from iPod, which funds come from the consolidated fund. So the current policies are trying to restrain the National Unity Platform from accessing those funds, or putting up conditions that are considered quite stringent by the actors in the National Unity Platform to access the said funds. So political parties, political party funding makes these political parties strong. So I believe there shouldn't be any intent or approach to weaken these political parties by, using financial regulations or, any other policies to counter their financing sources from internal sources or external means. So I believe the political parties are core actors in democracy, and Uganda being a republic, democracy, and these political parties form it. So it is constitutional that these political parties must exist and must do their activities, the campaigns, and everything. So there shouldn't be, even these, the Financial Intelligence Authority shouldn't, I believe, bother a lot in funding coming towards political or civic activities in the country. So as the country goes on through the festive political season or election roadmap, we have seen a lot of challenges, some politicians facing challenges and political parties, but we have also seen a rise in the costs of politics where certain politicians have injected over and over unaccountable funds in the political or campaign season. So that should also be a concern, as we are worried about the limited funding or limited funds of certain political parties or actors. Let's also be discussing about the steady increase of unregulated financing of political activities in the country, because it is a worry to the costs of politics in this country, because the moment we continue allowing or exhibiting these unregulated financing of political campaigns and political activities, we are constraining these young people who have come up to to give themselves to offer leadership for this country. We are also constraining, giving rise to or birth to other vices, for example, corruption, and like she has been saying, these politicians are coerced to go into passing controversial resolutions or getting kickbacks from contractors and government projects. So this hinders public funds from executing public projects. So before we address those two concerns, let's regulate.
The regulation is
the
key.
mechanisms. So these policies are already in place, but they just need review. So we are saying, let the Financial Intelligence Authority not limit the financing, the external financing of these political parties, because as we talk, there are concerns about, you know, a lot of money that has been frozen, that has been coming to the civil society that is currently frozen by the Financial Intelligence Authority. So this, the civil society is part and parcel of consolidating democracy in any democratic state, because it is an independent actor that acts as an oversight between the government and, you know, the existing political actors. So as we talk, we talk about, you know, the constraints about that these political parties are facing, let's also talk about these political parties who are, you know, dishing out unregulated cash, because it is contaminating the entire political landscape.
It's interesting, of course, and it could come off as a contradiction of sorts, where you are grappling with politicians who are barely managing to go ahead with operations of campaigning, while at the same time you have another set of politicians who are muddying the waters for those that are resource constrained. In the Daily Monitor today, page 5 has "Government Crippling My Campaign," and that is Frank Blira, who is the president of the People's Revolutionary Party. He accuses the government of hindering his efforts, including the freezing of funds and the intimidation of supporters. He says, as a personal assistant to the late Dr. Aggrey Kiyingi, he unveiled his manifesto, but apparently he's unable to receive funds from way abroad, including Zambia, to support his campaign. We all know there was a spat between the state and the late Dr. Aggrey Kiyingi, and maybe being an assistant, this gentleman is widely, or rather seen as one who was behind the activities or the alleged activities of Dr. Kiyingi. So this might be more political than structural to discuss why those funds are frozen in particular, but it also talks to the challenges that do happen. Frozen funds means you cannot operate. Okay, that one is more like an anecdote, but allow me dive into exactly the democratic consolidation. You've had the chance to study how Uganda operated before political party dispensation, the opening up of political space. We had the movement system where it was individual merit that would take you through. And before that, of course, parties had operated, including in the 1980s. Aminu's regime saw a complete ban on anything like that. It was a total dictatorship, but before that, the Obote regime had come through on account of political party participation. Which works best for us? Do you think that a return to individual merit would put away some of these challenges, for example?
No.
Marion?
No.
No.
No, I do not think that
we shouldn't return to individual
merit.
So
the idea of political parties, especially in a democracy, is that you are able to galvanize people around ideas, or having a platform of people coming together who espouse, let me say, the same ideas, the same beliefs and principles, and they are galvanizing around this vehicle in order to see that the things that they believe in, the beliefs that they have, then translate into policy, which is then passed and can impact their lives. That is the whole idea of a political party. That as the NUP, we believe in social justice, we believe in constitutionalism, and therefore we are coming together to make sure that we sell those ideals to the populace, and in the event that they believe in those ideals, they're able to vote us into power, and we make sure that those ideals come into fruition. The thing about individual merit and going into it alone is, again, the constraint. You see that even right now, the NUP is constrained because iPod money is not coming in. As we said, there are challenges with even the funding that comes from outside, whatever sources that the regime in power is trying to limit our sources of resources. But as a party, we're able to come together and fundraise within ourselves to make sure that
the things run.
Yeah, that things run, even if they're not running as smoothly as we would have liked, but they are running. That when you are in a constituency and you have a councillor, that you can lean on your area MP to help you, you know, drive that campaign. So at the end of the day, two heads are better than one, that you are able to galvanize around this issue and then push it. Whereas an individual will struggle to actually do some of these things alone. It is much easier to break an individual than a huge group of people.
Of course.
So for me, I would say practically, it's not feasible. That's why we need political parties to be able to rise. You can't go in it alone. I think it is so vigorous.
Finally, Mr. Mukama, are political parties on their own doing the best to entrench democracy within themselves before they can offer themselves for leadership, especially at presidential level? We do see a lot of activity in the election cycle or in the run-up to a general election. But elections, democratic processes, governance structuring must be happening at political party level, even as early as the first year of a government running. So much so that by the time the general election comes, elections have been conducted, people are comfortable with being voted in and out, and can actually accept the result of an election. Is that being done sufficiently well?
Well, I believe we are doing better because you see, democracy is part and parcel of, you know, national interests. Because under the categories of national interests, we have there are primary ones and secondary ones. So democracy, being part of the foundation of this nation, is a primary national interest. So any violation against it may curtail, you know, state actors, may entail state actors to come in place. So that's what Tinyefunza the other day was talking about when he was encouraging the Tanzanian defense forces to come in and take power to restore, you know, that stability. Because when there is a violation of, you know, rule of law and democracy, the army can come in and take power. It is an entitlement. Even in our constitution, the army, the UPDF, can come in and take power when there is violation of national interests or, you know, that state security. So back to political parties, to political parties, we see like we have seen these political parties go into internal democratic processes, which have been anyway. Not convincing, because we have seen in the NRM these internal, you know, NRM primaries have been marred by chaos and, you know, bloodshed and all that. So in the NUP, these are the most, you know, rival political parties that we are considering in this context. But there are very many, of course. In the NUP, we have seen a lot of, you know, a lot of accusations of bribery, you know, sexual harassment, and, you know, immorality. So, and this has led to an exodus of members in the NUP and actors. Yes. Yeah. So these political parties are trying to exhibit some democratic ideas. However much they are still lacking, but there is some movement. So we shall not keep Uganda as a testing ground, moving from one political strategy, or, you know, one political
dispensation
to another.
Okay.
Yes. So
Mr. Byamukama, my apologies for equating, or rather making you look like you can become one of the top election
He's a fellow Minyore. He comes
but
from
Yamukama, youth
I'm
researcher and political analyst. Many thanks to you too. Marion Chirabo, the NUP candidate for LC5 Lord Councillor for